Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Blind Spot. So in this episode, we have the return of Cade. Kai wasn't expecting that. It's actually kind of a sad circumstance because it's like the CIA snatched him up like a year ago. I guess because ultimately they make it seem like, because basically they never had any intentions of ever giving him his deal. Like, oh, you can be protected forever, because it's like, no, you're part of Sandstorm, this large scale terrorist organization, which I'm sure just him being a terrorist, it doesn't have to just be the fact that he was part of Sandstorm, but Sandstorm specifically because its whole design was to bring down the United States government and almost try, I guess because it was a step too close to bringing the whole system down. But nevertheless, it's a situation where it's kind of the politics of the CIA, but also what the CIA does, because it's like, no, he's a terrible person. He doesn't deserve a second chance. But you have someone like Jane be like, no, he deserves it. It's like she got a second chance and she thinks he deserves one too. So basically, this is about him being on a flight. Basically, it was like a CIA plane. It was called Valkyrie. And Tasha quickly puts it together. I love that she was like, we got to tell the FBI team. And then Keaton's like, no, we keep our mouth shut about this. Because she's like, did you know? He's like, no, I didn't know. But we still got to keep our mouth shut. Which she's like, we're already keeping our mouth shut about Dragonfly. This literally happened here. So the FBI is going to get a whiff of it anyway. So might as well tell them, because she already got tired of keeping secrets. But basically, we end up finding out, it's kind of continuing the sad aspect of the show. It's about a former CIA operative named Quinn. Basically, her husband, who was also a CIA operative, was captured by some bad guys and was killed, beheaded. There was even a video and everything, because the CIA devoured him. And it's like, oh no, he's just some journalist, which, part of his cover. And just, no, it was like a student or something like that is what his cover was, but they ended up killing. And this is all Quinn exacting revenge on everyone that had involvement in her husband's death, not just the people who actually killed him, but the people she feels responsible for the CIA, because it's like all that the CIA does, it captures all these terrorists and kind of locked them up in these black sites, but it's like you don't actually do anything for the people that matter. Like, obviously there's a whole aspect of like, well, no negotiating with terrorists, but at the same time it's like the CIA kind of does its own thing, and it's just like Quinn just tired of it. It's just like, this is my husband, like you didn't lift a finger to do anything about it. And so it's just the way like I said, it's the guy, this particular guy, Robert, but also just the way that the CIA like handles itself. It's just, I don't know, it's just sad it all led her to this point in time. You even see it later on, because you see Keaton try to check her pulse. I think he was actually hoping, like, because he knew her, like, because even she was like, yeah, I kind of like you, Keaton. Like, she's like, I'm sorry that you kind of had to got caught up in all of this. And so I actually felt bad for that dude that Keaton was talking to. He's like, okay, a lot of us won't survive, but we need to rush and get this guy. He's just like, just tell me when, before he can even finish the sentence. He got shot and killed, and you see the blood splatter all over like Keaton's face. I was like, man, that sucks. But I think it's also because for him, he's like, he understood where Quinn was coming from. So it's like, he didn't want her dead, but probably like, hey, she gets locked up, whatever. Like, obviously things aren't going to go well for her, but he, didn't want things to kind of turn out the way they did. And that kind of flows into the episode, and I think that's such a fascinating aspect. It's because, they go back to the whole Cade situation. Keaton was like, oh yeah, like, no, he's not getting a deal. It's like, what? He did his part. It's like, no, he's still a Sandstorm terrorist. That basically there is no wrong and right. They're just things that just are. So they don't deal with like things being so black and white. They deal with the shade of gray of like, that's the way things really are, And the question does become like, is Tasha okay with that? And obviously, like, it's kind of interesting because when it came down to it, she didn't say anything to Cade or the team. I thought she would have. Even when it was all said and done, it's like, oh yeah, the CIA, she might have told him off screen, but it's like the CIA never had any intentions of giving him his deal. Like, they bluffed to get the information they needed from him. So Tasha was all for it, but like the fact that she kept her mouth shut about it, even when the circumstances were down, Cade just could tell by her demeanor and just everything that happened. It's like, no, this deal thing isn't going down. So I don't know if she told Reed or not, but it kind of brought interesting perspective to things because Tasha is seeming like she is sticking with the CIA, even though she didn't agree with a lot of the stuff that went down. I think what Keaton has said kind of got to her because Reed's like, don't you ever think about coming back to the FBI? But she's like, yeah, I have. But it's like, this is where she belongs because, like, yes, like, you might not like the way Keaton handles things, but Keaton does things the way he does because other people won't have to. And she's like, that's where she belongs. So it's not even just about the Reed situation. I think it's just a situation of, like, a combination of she's already probably crossed that line and done so much stuff that she's really not proud of, and she probably feels like she can't go back to the team. There's that possibility, but I think it's also the thing is of being in Keaton's position where it's like doing what's necessary so that so other people don't have to. Like, she can do the terrible things so her friends and the people she care about and that part of that FBI task force, that team, never has to like cross that line and worry about it themselves. She dirties her hands so they won't have to. Because there was also something else Keaton kind of brought up about like himself, like, oh yeah, he used to do undercover work and stuff, and Tasha was like, do you miss it? And he was like, yeah, a little bit, but he has his family now and they're more important to him. And he's kind of like, the undercover work is for those who kind of have nothing. And the fact that you're throwing that out there kind of makes me wonder, is that where we'll be seeing Tasha go eventually when it's all said and done with this? Either at the end of this or, you know, this whole like Crawford situation, will she do something like that? Or when this whole Dragonfly thing comes out and the team turns over? Because like even NASA's like, the team will not be happy about what happens. So it's like, you know, what will you do? Will it be better to kind of tell, like, whether you want to or not, that Dragonfly information will come out. It's a tattoo on Jane's. They will figure it out eventually. The only reason why they never figured out this Valkyrie tattoo is because it was all connected to CIA, and the CIA is very good at keeping stuff hush hush, keeping their secrets. So that's where this all plays in. But the fact of the matter is, I think that might be the ultimate thing that ends up pushing Tasha away from the squad, where it's like, okay, she might go full CIA and undercover. Like, the fact that they threw that conversation in there kind of makes me wonder, is that where Tasha's going to end up at the end of all of this? So ultimately, we'll have to wait and see. Last time we see Kate is he's being shot by Jane for the purposes of like, oh, he's got Zapata. So there's that. But I assume he just gets locked up, which is sad. But I wonder, will we be seeing any more of him? I mean, we haven't seen hide nor hair of Shepard, which like I'm still curious about, like whether we'll see anything or not. I mean, I guess it's still a situation of like she won't provide any needed information, so I guess it's kind of like, well, we don't even need to bother with that. But like I said, we will have to wait and see on that front. The other side of the episode deals with Blake and Junior's kidnapping. I love that, because that took a twist I wasn't expecting. Because in my mind, I'm like, okay, like, last episode, I was like, oh my, he's got to be behind it. Like, I knew that kidnapping had to be staged or something. And I was just like, I was like, oh man. And then there was like no kidnappers there. I was like, wait, what? Why wouldn't there? I was like, it's Roman, isn't it? And he starts killing him. I'm like, Roman set this whole thing up, and he's trying to tell Blake to be calm and everything. And then he saved Junior. And that's why I was kind of like, why would he save? I thought you just saved Blake. I was like, I was like, what's going on here? But then it's like, I was like, maybe that's just to fit the narrative of like, oh, he saved both of them and everything. And then lo and behold, it turns out it wasn't Junior behind it. It wasn't Roman. It was Crawford himself. It's like, wow, really? You're a diabolical bastard. You set up your own daughter to be kidnapped. That's crazy. I mean, to be fair, it kind of fits along the same side as Roman. Roman, what did he do? He faked a purse snatching so that he could get closer to her. I mean, granted, those are very, very different levels. Obviously, he probably was never worried, because it's like, no, my daughter would never be in any danger. But even Roman kind of admits, it's like, oh, I got in your head a little bit about like, oh yeah, like there could be potential danger. Because obviously he was like, oh yeah, they're going to be there to make sure they get John Paul's son. They're not going to be too worried about Blake. And he's thinking like, even with this situation being what it is, they go in there a little hot-headed. It could end up with Blake being dead. And it's just like, no, he is kind of a decent father, I guess. So he wasn't willing to take those chances. And so I was like, hey. So Roman handled that because he figured everything out. And so now, you know, you have Crawford being like, oh yeah, you know my secret. So haha. And then he makes that messed up joke about like, oh yeah, but now I got to kill you. I'm not going to stab you. It's the poison in the drink. I was like, oh my God, what? I was like, did Roman figure it out at the last second, switched out the drink so he's messing with him? I was like, oh, like Roman's playing along or something. And then I was like, oh God, what's going to happen? I was like, oh my God, he's trying to, what? I was like, oh God, I was like, I didn't expect this. Like, it's Roman literally about to die now. Is he going to find some way to save himself? It's like, nah, I'm just joking. It's like, he's like, oh, you should have seen the look on your face. It's like, haha, right. And it's like, oh God. Crawford is not to be trifled with. Holy shit. It's like, that was scary, because it's like, but then you also see the look on Roman's face. Roman wasn't amused, because now it puts things in perspective, because it's like, yeah, even being a close ally, he still needs to watch his back. To be fair, what did he do to the man that was kind of like a son to him, as like Blake made it seem like? The moment it seemed like, oh yeah, Victor may have betrayed him without, you know, everything kind of, to be fair, all the evidence kind of pointed to him being the traitor, but he, without hesitation, killed Victor himself. So that kind of speaks volumes. The fact is, Roman even went out of his way to be like, "Oh, I'll never tell Blake the truth because it would destroy her." And I'm like, like, I'm curious about, like, Roman's motivation. Like, when he went to go save Blake, like, that concern on his face, that looked real. That didn't look fake. Like, the fact is, he went out of his way to keep going. It's like, you do care about her. Like, I've been saying the entire time, like, that's the problem with undercover work. It starts becoming a little too real for you. In this particular case, it's like, you're definitely developing feelings for Blake, whether you want to realize it or not. But I don't know, maybe that could have been him trying to play it up in front of Crawford, but I still kind of feel like that. No, those looks were legitimate concerns. So I don't know. I think ultimately he will tell Blake just to kind of screw over Crawford, like whatever it is he's up to. Because like obviously Blake was trying to get close to Junior to kind of help out her dad, but obviously her dad played his own angle because he's trying to get close to John Paul. It's like, well, now thanks to this, they're in good. Not, I would assume Roman's very good at his job, so he made sure all of those guys were dead. But there's also the possibility that maybe one of them ended up surviving, and they go back and tell John Paul about, oh, Roman did this, and it's like, oh, that must mean Crawford's behind us too. He played it, So I don't know. I get the feeling at some point, Tom, I think specifically Roman's going to be the one to end up telling her the truth. It's like, I love you, so I just want to tell you the truth. Your dad, he's a terrible person. He's the one that kidnapped you. Wait, what? Yep, he staged everything. So we'll have to wait and see what happens about that. And kind of along those same lines, we have the team, we had in particular Kurt and Jane taking Patterson's advice from last episode and telling Avery about what they found out about her dad. Obviously, she didn't want to know. It turns out that basically he murdered a guy and then Crawford covered it up. We don't really know. I don't think they didn't go into specifics about who it was that he murdered. Did they? I don't remember. I think they might have, and I just might have lost it. But learning this about her father, it kind of upsets Avery on many different levels. It's like, not only was he not the guy that she thought he was, which everyone at that table could kind of understand. Like, well, Jane thought she was one person, turns out she's another, and just everything she thought she came to know about herself over like a lot of everything she thought about her being Taylor Shaw and everything in season 1 turns out not to be the case. So she knows that. Then, Kurt even brings it up in this episode, everything associated with his dad, which is still like, it's a story element that played its role in season 1. So I don't think it's ever going to come back in any shape or form. Maybe it will, but just all the terrible things his dad did. And it's like his dad, because even Kurt goes like, yeah, I kind of like my dad wasn't the person I thought he was, or maybe he actually was a person. Because let's not forget, like when it came to his dad, like Kurt always believed his dad was behind Taylor's disappearance and potential death. But then like Jane came back and didn't, like, he still couldn't let go of the hate. But then he was also kind of like, no, I forgive you, Dad, because like, maybe I just jumped on the bandwagon of everyone else and thinking everyone else assumed you did it, so I assumed you did it. But it turns out, well, in fact, he did do it. There's evidence and proof of it. But then it's like, maybe because at the same time, it's like for Kurt, it's like I always knew on some level, but I just wasn't willing to admit it. So for Avery, what also sucks too is like her dad is like, oh, kind of something I brought up last episode. Oh, he killed himself just because he couldn't live potentially with what happened. So for her, it's like, oh, did trying to get away from that pain, that escaping that pain, was that more important to him than just being there for me? So at least she has, like, Jane and Kurt to have a shoulder to cry on. But we do see at the very end that he has stab wounds in his body, like his body being dumped, which I'm like wondering, how do you cover that up? I don't know. Maybe his body was so messed up in the water. Maybe fish got to it that most likely Crawford's got long reach, because that's something that comes up in the episode too. Like, Reed talks to, the Attorney General or something like that, the DA, about it, but he wouldn't go after. No, it was most likely district attorney. It probably wasn't like probably that. Like, nevertheless, he was like, oh, let's go after Crawford, but the dude was like, no, Crawford's very powerful. Yes, he's a kind of slimy, shady businessman at the very least, but like what we know beyond that, we don't know. And it's like, I'm not going to jeopardize everything trying to go after Crawford. Crawford basically has enough money to basically make the U.S. blush, which is how like filthy rich he is and all the connection he has. I almost like didn't even talk about it earlier. It's like that SOB, like it's literally, he's the one who, like, one of the shell companies he owns made the planes that he ended up selling to the CIA, which even Keaton didn't know about that. That's kind of an aspect about it. Like with the CIA, they keep secrets all the times, like, Because there's even stuff like Keaton's like, yeah, they keep stuff even from, because even him, he confronted the dude Robert about it. It's like, why didn't you tell me about, like, I'm literally looking into Crawford and you didn't feel the need to tell me anything. So he doesn't tell Tasha anything because he doesn't know anything himself. That's how the CIA operates. That's just kind of like you only need to know what you need to know at that point in time. Once it becomes relevant for you knowing, then you get to come to the Bit Boys circle, grown-ups table, I guess I should say. But nevertheless, I guess I get the feeling like they must have covered it up at like an Emmy's office or something. Because it looks like he has stab wounds, which I brought it up earlier. He stabbed Victor. And the fact is, he's like, oh, I'm not going to stab you. Because that must be his favorite way of killing people. Because that begs the question about a lot of stuff about Avery's dad. Most like one of two things. Either he really did commit that murder just probably because like Crawford's like, oh, if you don't do this, I'm coming after Avery. Or he took the fall for it because it's like, oh, if you don't do this, I'm coming after Avery. So he might have been in a room when Crawford committed the murder and he covered it up because he was trying to do it for Avery. And now he got removed from the equation because it's like, oh yeah, you're a loose end, which now Tom / Roman is. And like I said, that look like Roman knows that he's dispendable at any point in time. And just anytime Crawford feels like he can't trust you or like it's too much of a liability to have you around anymore, he'll kind of, X you out, so. Or, finally, it could just be the situation of like, he literally had nothing to do with the murder. He actually didn't commit the murder. He was just framed by Crawford. And just to kind of settle things, maybe that kind of fits along the same lines. Like the whole, because if he didn't do it and he got it framed for it, maybe Crawford got him off to make him go, oh man, thank you. It's like, oh, sorry about that. Now I got and took care of him to kind of, I don't know. Maybe he was looking too much into it, trying to find out who really was behind it. Or maybe the whole situation happened because he was looking into Crawford. He was actually trying to do the right thing. Like he wasn't involved with the murder, but he was looking into Crawford. And so Crawford, framed him for it, killed him. And all that, I don't know, like so many possibilities that could go down. So we'll ultimately have to wait and see what comes about that whole situation. So, but really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good.